All right, we're back
We're here
in January 2025.
with snow on the ground and cold temperatures. Aren't you glad to be here in the Midwest?
No, I was actually in Florida when all of the snow came, and I got back, and my husband had shorts on, and I was like, I told you it was going to be cold when we got back.
Like it's been the coldest it's been for a while, so, you know.
I've never seen this much snow, and I blame it on my new neighbor 100%, because in like early December, she sends me a message, and she's like, hey, should I get my son, who is the same age as my kids, snow pants? And I was like, no, we barely get like 6 inches a year. It's like a light dusting.
Which is what's weird, because usually we know that if you are north of like the 70 interchange, you're going to get more snow than the rest of the area. This round of snow, they got very, very little, and we got all of it. And it's like, ugh.
But it was kind of crazy landing in Dayton Airport. After our flight was canceled into Cincinnati, we landed in Dayton, and they have to plow the runway so we can taxi in.
That is insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of people stranded and a lot of weather delays with the airlines and everything. So I was wondering if you had any of that.
Yep.
But that's the worst, is when you're someplace nice and warm in the sunshine and you're thinking about shorts and flip-flops and all the fun stuff, and then you have to come home and it's like, what am I coming home to? Why am I coming home?
Right.
That's the worst.
Yeah. So you just plan another one.
Or just don't come back. Like,
Right.
if you see the weather where you are, like if you're in the tropics and you see the weather back home is going to be miserable snow and everything,
Yeah.
I would just extend my stay if I could.
Just become a snowbird at like 34 years old.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Oh, so I have goals.
Yeah. So I feel like on social media, though, I've seen real estate's kind of picked up.
Yeah, there's definitely a change in the atmosphere, a lot of activity that's going on. Mortgage rates are still back and forth and not really settling in. We still probably aren't going to see that happen until later in this year, that we'll see maybe it's settled down where people have some confidence. But really what's happening is that anybody now is trying to get ahead of what they know is going to happen in the spring, which if everybody's looking in the spring, well, then if I move up my timeline by a month or so and I can be ahead of it, then maybe I could still win. Maybe I could still get a house. Sellers have gotten anxious because maybe there's not as many showings due to the weather and all this stuff that's going on, that they're like, well, maybe I'll just wait. And I keep saying, don't pull it off of the listing now. I mean, if you want to sell it, stay on.
Yeah.
If there is somebody that's motivated and actually needs to do it, they're going to come out and look regardless of the weather.
Yeah.
What's funny is one of my other clients, one of the probably 20 different houses that we were looking at when she was back in the market, and it was that ridiculous snowstorm that we had like in 2005, where it was just so many inches, like the highways were closed, you didn't go anywhere. We were out looking at houses, and so every time there's a snowstorm, she'll send me that meme about, yep, here we are trudging through the snow. We've got our snow boots on, and we're determined we're going to see this house. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you know, you got to do what you got to do safely, but you got to do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're coming from out of town and you're only here 48 hours,
Yep.
too bad if there's a snowstorm.
I mean, it is what it is. I've had multiple people from other states who are looking to buy, and, you know, when they plan that trip, it's going to be for the work schedule, for what they have going on back there. You kind of have to take it. Yes, it may be sunny, or it may be rain, or it could be snow in this case,
Yeah.
or sub-zero temperature. And it's like, just layer up, people, and get out there and go do it.
So when you have clients from other states, how do you meet them?
Yeah, so a lot of times that's a referral from a past client that, you know, they've trusted me, they liked the service that I did, and so they're like, oh yeah, you got to use this person. And so I'm already a heads up when they come in. Usually we've already had at least several phone calls and or texts or emails, which is helpful to start building that relationship before they roll up. But then you get to meet them in person, and now you get to see. But my big thing is I want to make the most of that time that they give me when they're here. So like in the case of the one couple, you know, it was for the holidays and everything, so they're going to take care of all of that with the family, but they gave me a block of time and said, here's when we would be available. I'm already going to set up, preview, do whatever I can on any of the possible houses and a variety of communities, because unless they know exactly where they want to go, they may not know what's the difference in Centerville versus Oakwood versus Beaver Creek. And so you have to kind of give them a range of here's what is available. This style of home for this price point, here are the communities that may work for you, and then is there anything else? In most cases, if they want to be next to their friend that referred them or their family member, then that's going to be maybe more of a community issue that they say this is where I want to go. But if they're not coming here for work and they're not coming for anything else other than I just want to get a house, get the best house for what's the best deal, they may get to experience a couple of our communities and then decide what works for them, which then you want to make sure they go out and have a lunch or a dinner, you know, so that they're seeing that aspect of the community and what it's going to do. But it's always fun because then you get to meet new people and show off, you know, your communities that you know and love and for yourself, but you get to share it with somebody else, so you get to see it through a different perspective for them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely uptick, a lot more activity. Listings, you know, they're coming off if they haven't gotten the price point or they hit that stagnant stage. But there's listings that are coming on, and so people are starting to really gear up for that. I think it just really comes down again to the consumer, the buyer, is now the time or do I wait? And so that really is a personal, each person's situation is going to dictate if pull the trigger now or wait. Of course, I'm going to tell you, if you are looking, get ahead of the curve. Go ahead and get pre-approved with a lender. Go ahead and know what your budget is, what you're comfortable with, what you really want to spend on it. And then work with someone who's going to listen to your needs. Because a lot of the frustration is, you know, like another client that I had, they had already set up and we're going to build with this developer in a different area of our state. And they had all these conversations over the phone, but then when they came into town to go see it, it's like, this doesn't meet like any of the requirements that we were talking about. So that person kind of really had a disconnect from them and not understanding what they were expressing that they really wanted in their home and where they wanted to be. So you can't, I mean, I would never feel comfortable in pulling the wool over somebody's eyes and saying, here's a great house for you. Surprise, it's not what you want. That wouldn't be good. You know, I want them to come in and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is exactly, or, you know, you want those warm fuzzies. You want to sell it for a lower expectation, and then they'll come in and be wowed with it. But if you aren't listening to them and what it is that's really driving that decision for them to make a move and to buy, you're going to fail your client at that point. And so that's not a position that I like to be in.
Yeah.
But I think we have, you know, lots of opportunities that are going on. Price points are still holding steady. Like, they're not coming down. Sometimes you'll see price adjustments, but honestly, that's because maybe they listed at a higher than what they should have been. You know, yes, everybody wants to get more for their property. Get it. As a seller, that's exactly what you want to do. But as a buyer, you want to get the best deal, so you want to pay a little bit less, right? Because you're paying more on interest, so you want to get it off on the price. And so you guys have to be able to come to the table together in order for that to work out.
Yeah.
So, what else you got?
Drawing a blank.
Not you. So the process, you know, it's pretty much the same process. Get into an offer, go through the inspection process, work with your lender, get the appraisal lined up and everything. And a lot of questions are, you know, well, how long is this going to take? You know, if you get a lender who's really on it and you've got all of your documents, you answer those quickly. Theoretically, anywhere between 3 weeks and 4 weeks, you could comfortably get a deal done, right? Sometimes it may go a little bit longer if there's a backlog or anything, which I think we'll see in the spring when there's more activity. Appraisers are going to take longer, inspections are going to take longer, they're going to be busier, so that process may get backed up a little bit. But I think if you're off writing a contract between 30 and 45 days, you should be able to do it, you know. And now we're through the holidays, so if you pull the trigger and you want to move, now's the right time to make it happen.
So do you ever see in January more sales because of divorces or people splitting up? Like, does that?
I don't know that we have an actual month where you see that going on.
Because there's more divorces filed in January
Yeah.
than any other time.
Yeah. And I mean, it would stand reason, but if they filed, does that mean it's finished, or does that happen later in the year? I don't know that we really see a marker that shows that. From a real estate perspective, you kind of wonder when you have two parties that are on opposite ideas of when they're buying. Is this going to last? What's going on?
Yeah.
Or just not even, when you go into the house to look at it for a listing and it's not decorated, it's like just still boxes everywhere. Did they really ever intend on living here, or was this a deal from the beginning that they knew it was over with? But
Yeah.
some of those things you get kind of an insight into sometimes. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I don't know that we see a real timetable that says, oh, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like investors, usually you'll see a big buyout at the end of the year, right? You see normal buyer activity really pick up in the spring and the summer, but I don't know that we have anything that marks for divorces.
Oh, okay.
A lot of single, unmarried, or divorced women own versus men. So I feel like when a guy comes out of the situation, let's say, he's probably just going to rent somewhere and not worry about it because they're not really worried about putting down roots or anything like that.
Yeah.
Boy, this is really generalized, and I don't mean to offend anybody by talking in generalities, but the numbers show that there are more women who, whether or not there are children involved, just the stability of it, either they get the house out of the divorce and so they keep it, or they want a house because that's what they are used to now. And so you see them maybe stay in that kind of a buyer side of it.
Gotcha. So when you talk about spring, it'll pick up, is that like the first little flower that blooms, or is it like
First break in the weather? Like if we have a lot of snow, the activity is going to be less, simply because people just don't get out unless they have to.
Yeah.
So if you have to buy, you're going to be still getting out in it. But the looky-loos aren't going to be looking at it, which means you don't have the people who are considering and that might be convinced in order to do it if they found the right house.
Yeah.
But as soon as weather breaks, then you will see that influx of activity. Listings will start happening, coming on in greater numbers about mid-February, because they want to get on and kind of start tempering it, and then March is really the full-on activity. We kind of had a late winter coming out of here, considering January was our first snow for the year.
Yeah.
I would hate to think that means what it usually means, that we have a much later winter season, like it'll go into April.
Oh, yeah.
I always hate that.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm ready for summer.
When I was younger, I worked at the Dayton Dragons, and I remember the players having like a snowball fight.
Yeah.
It was like the second day after opening day.
Yeah, and you don't want that. Like, you're ready for spring when it's
Right.
spring, right? But if that happens, then it does push it back a little bit. But other than that, I mean, people are ready for things to kind of get going. And, we see the uptick on some things. If the interest rates would just, even if they just stay, like, just stop making them go up and down. Just leave them for a minute.
Yeah.
I think people can settle in and understand, okay, I can deal with this, and I don't really have a choice. I'll refinance in the future. But it's the up and down volatility that people kind of get into, like, well, I'll just wait. And when it comes down, it's like airfare.
Yeah.
Wait for the low price, and then I'll book my ticket.
On Tuesdays.
You know what I do on Tuesdays, right? Well, anyway, so if there's anything else, I guess, we'll take a look at the numbers and see how things are going. We're waiting for our data to come out for a full-on end-of-year review. But, activity has still been up. And, even though we may not have the exact number or more in sales, total number of transactions, prices stayed higher. So that kind of like you sell a few more or a few less, but you still make as much money.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother topic I think we'll talk about too, because we got a lot of people that were really interested in our podcast on becoming a new realtor and how much to make and when do you make the money type of thing. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us today on the Realty Podcast. If you enjoyed the knowledge and entertainment today, please subscribe and share with your friends. We will be embarking on a journey that bridges the gap between realtors and clients, uncovering the heart and tea of real estate.